Welcome to Uncharted Narrative. Today's episode features Brooke Silva, Director of Nursing Solutions at S03E03-The, a leader in decentralized clinical trials. Brooke brings over 13 years of nursing experience and now oversees a talented team working at the cutting edge of research, making trials more inclusive and patient-friendly than ever before. Brooke shares how decentralized clinical trials, where nurses visit patients in their own homes, are changing the landscape of medical research. We talk about the rigorous training nurses undergo to ensure high-quality data collection, and the unique ways home visits can reduce barriers for participants and improve diversity. You'll hear about the evolving role of nurses in research, their need to adapt, and the importance of building trust with pharmaceutical partners. Brooke also weighs in on how technology enhances patient engagement, while continuous feedback and innovative thinking drive better outcomes. We dig into the challenges of recruitment during today's nursing shortages, and Brooke explains why the future of research relies on integrating seamless technology and empowering nurses more than ever. If you're fascinated by the future of healthcare, workforce challenges, and how small innovations create massive impact, you won't want to miss this one. Let's get started.
Brooke, how is it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm very excited for today.
Yes, it's so great to see you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate that. And very excited also, as I mentioned, every time we connect, I'm impressed with the lighting in your room.
Thank you. It's a plant light, but it does make it look like I have a purple glow in the background.
Yeah. It's look like from here, it's like pink. Do you like pink?
Yes.
Yeah. Sounds good. And also one of the things, maybe I never told you because you are in Miami, one of my to-do list to go someday for ultra music festivals. But now I'm getting older and all the gray hair. I don't know if I will make it or not.
Well, yeah, and I think like I would want to go to bed at 10 o'clock and they go later than that.
Yeah, sure. Much later. Yeah. We get older, so thank you for your time. I came across a lot of nursing entrepreneur and nursing where have experience in different role as a typical chief nursing officer or director or working in the hospital. And for like myself, I am out of the bedside since more than 15 years. I moved to different business from consulting and health tech. And every time I believe I cover and I discover everything where there is nursing, they can do a job and have a success story. But you bet me, this is not the case. So tell me more about your current role. We will go more about your experience, but right now about who you are and what you are doing.
Yes. So my current role, I am Director of Nursing Solutions Group at a company called Science 37. And I fell in love with this company from the first time that I walked in the doors. But my current role as the director is I oversee the whole department. We have a very large team of nurses all across the country. And we basically take a clinical trial, which is traditionally done at like a brick and mortar site in a clinic or at a hospital. And my nurses we equip them with everything that they need to do those clinical trial visits in somebody's home. And so my role, I wear many, many hats. I oversee all of the nursing side of things. I'm working really closely with the commercial team to make sure that all of the studies that are coming in the door are things that we can actually do. We create training materials based on protocols that we receive so that our nurses are able to do these visits in the home. We wear many hats, but I have a very large team of nurses all across the country, and they all roll into me, but I have a lot of support, a really strong team of full-time nurses who are amazing. But yeah, I can get into the nitty-gritty, but that's kind of a high-level overview, is doing these kind of decentralized clinical research trials.
Yeah, it is interesting because I thought if I want to work in research or scientific trials, I need to be more specialized in this area. But what you are doing with your team, no, you are nursing, you are visiting your client, your patient sample. What is the right name for your client?
Yeah, so there's a lot of debate around that, but my favorite term is participant. They are
participant. Yeah. fancy and yeah, so to go for the participant and to do that, so that was something new for me, and it's surprising because the stereotype for us, if I want to participate in any research study, I need to go for something very wide scientific with the glasses and googles and all of those. Now they came for me and visiting me. Was at least for me something new.
Yeah. And I think it's the thing that's really awesome about it is it's exciting for many reasons from my perspective in this role, because I get to see I get to see the real science on the front end of medicine, where when you're working in the hospital, you're kind of executing things, but you don't get to see the science and all of the work that's going into developing a medication or a device or whatever it is. So you get to see all of this stuff kind of on the front line of medicine and science, but we also are doing these studies in the participant's home, we are doing things that have never been done before. For example, we have a study right now for Parkinson's, and there is an assessment that has to be done in Parkinson's called a UPDRS assessment, and it's part of this study, but that's never been done in the home before. And so we've been working with the client, going back and forth, how we can execute this assessment that's typically done in a clinic by a doctor or an NP or a PA. How can we do that in the home and replicate and get those same results that they would get at the site? So we get to be really kind of creative and innovative while also getting to see all the cool stuff that's happening on the front end of medicine that hasn't yet, made its way through the FDA. So it's exciting.
It is. So I'm wondering for your team, how much they need to be involved with those process and to be up to date with the processes, tools, technique, all those to make sure they deliver a high quality and get also high quality sample from the participant.
Yeah. So research is really unique in that it's very different than other types of nursing, because everything in research is all about the data, right? The data is gold, because that data is what the client, a sponsor, a pharmaceutical company or a medical device company, they're going to use that data to go to the FDA to say this drug is efficacious and we want to bring it to market. And so everything is really important. Every blood pressure, every lab sample, blood draw that's done in the home, it's all really, really important. So we work really closely with our nurses, and they go through very robust training when they're onboarding to the organization. They have to really get like a research fundamental training. And so one of the primary things in research is called GCP, good clinical practice. So they all get all of this training, which is this like foundation of research. And then we train them on how to do research kind of the Science 37 way, which is very specific, because we're doing things in the home that would normally be done in a clinic. And so we're training them on both of those things. Once we have a study that comes down the pipeline, I have a team of full-time nurses, and we are taking these protocols that we get from the client. And sometimes these protocols can be 200 pages long. And we're digesting that and putting it in very easy, digestible steps for a nurse that's in the home, so they can work through that protocol, like
as a checklist.
Yep, kind of as a checklist to set them up for success in the home. But with this, there's always amendments that are being done to the protocol. So there's new training that we have to push out to the nurses. But all of the nurses that go through my onboarding, at the very end of it, they have to be signed off by one of the doctors within the company to make sure that they meet kind of minimum standards, because what we do is so important. And it's really important that the data that these nurses are gathering in the home is of the highest quality. So we need to ensure that our nurses are really high quality. We put them through kind of a rigorous onboarding process, but on the other side of it, we have a team of really, really great nurses. But there's a lot that you have to kind of keep up with in research. And the protocols are always being tweaked and amended a little bit for various reasons. And so it's making sure that all of the nurses are keeping up to that. And as you can imagine, with a team of 130 nurses, it's a large team of people that we're trying to always keep up to date on things, and so it can be challenging, especially per diem nurses have multiple jobs and things going on.
Yeah, sure. I feel you, and I know that because I work on the health tech companies and we develop solution and software. So I know I need to be up to date from clinical practice, and at the same time to solve a problem still existing with the innovative solution. But
Right.
if I'm not, how I say it, it's still easier for me to do that when I innovate something, not follow the evidence base in the medical, which is easy. So if I make any mistake, no one will blame me. Nothing will happen. We can repeat it, but it's not the case with you and your team. It's very hard. So this is why I feel it's good to bring you here and discuss those whole process. It is unique and also it is hard. So you need to know how to communicate with the customer, participant, how to be good in the business. You need to be a traveler nurse, and also you need to know how to collect the sample probably and ship them, and also to know how to be up to date with the knowledge and experience and follow the protocol and come back for you with a new idea to improve, enhance. It's a lot.
Yeah. And I think some of the things that are really unique, like the nurses that work in this role have to be super versatile. And it really isn't for everyone. But I know that when I first started working at my company, I worked as a per diem nurse myself. And I just totally fell in love in a way that I'd never really fallen in love with a job before. I was just so enamored with all of it. But, you know, there's many things that they have to do that are unique to this role that you would not find, like traveling to the participant's home. And that may be even getting on a plane with all of your equipment, which can be 2 or 3 bags of stuff, and flying to a participant's home. And one of the things that is really nice about doing the research in this way is that we can allow a large population of people who wouldn't be able to travel into a brick and mortar site to participate in clinical research. So we're really able to increase how many people these clinical trials can access. But the nurses are traveling to a participant's home. That may include a flight, or it may just be getting a rental car and driving a few hours. But on the way there, they're having to find out, well, before they even leave, they're having to look up all of the locations near the participant's house that sell dry ice, which is not easy to do. And even if a place says online that they sell dry ice, they might be sold out, especially like around Halloween or other times of year. Dry ice runs out in the grocery stores, but the nurses always have to pick up dry ice on the way. So they're having to look up locations of where they can find dry ice. And then they get to the participant's home and they're kind of having to set up. And I guess if people have worked in home health, they would be familiar, but it's kind of setting up this like clean working space in a participant's home. And so, you know, you're a guest in their house and you want to be very respectful, right, of their space. But one of the other things that my nurses do that's really unique is they're kind of a traveling lab as well. So all of my nurses have a centrifuge that they travel with, and they're actually drawing the blood samples. And you know how you work in the hospital, you draw the blood, you have the tube, you put it in a bag, you send it down to the lab, and 45 minutes later, you're getting the lab results on the computer. Well, we don't have that because it's in the home environment. So my nurses are drawing the blood. They actually travel with the centrifuge. They spin the blood down in a centrifuge in the home, and then they're aliquoting those samples, aliquoting the sample, the plasma, into a little aliquot tube, and then putting it on the dry ice in the home. And then after they're done, they're going to FedEx to ship the samples off. And so there's a lot that's involved. So even if a visit itself is only about 2 hours, they may travel 3 hours getting there, plus an hour trying to find dry ice, plus going to FedEx.
In case if there's no interruption happen in the airport and the plan and everything's coming as is,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I came across a lot of the challenges there, but without medical equipment and distributor taking with me, only my laptop.
Yeah. And our centrifuges are, they have to be calibrated. They're really sensitive. And so when my nurses have to fly on a plane, they can't, we don't let them check the bag because the baggage handlers may be rough with the centrifuge. So they have to carry the centrifuge onto the plane with them. So going through TSA, and you have this big, you know, thing, every time you get stopped, TSA unpacks your whole bag. They're like, what is this thing? Because it's this like centrifuge that my nurses are traveling with. And so, yeah, they get pretty thick skin.
Yeah, I can understand. It's not easy and it's very hard. And hat off for you and your team, and best of luck for them. So, speaking on what you are doing as a nursing here as your role, what you're saying about everyone who said, if I am not working in the bedside, that means I'm losing my clinical expertise and I will be away from that. So maybe I will lose my knowledge and experience.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I think for myself, I do visits from time to time just to keep up with my clinical skills, because that's something that I worried about too. But I think some of those clinical skills are kind of like riding a bicycle, right? You never lose it. And I think the skills that you develop in the hospital, not the clinical hard skills like drawing blood or those things, but you learn so much as a nurse working in a hospital on how to multitask, how to balance competing priorities, interface with different stakeholders. You have the family and the patient and the doctor and the charge nurse and the whoever. And so you learn so much about how to handle pressure and stress that translates really well into other roles, right? Translates really well into like a director level role in clinical research where you're also dealing with a lot of competing priorities and balancing different stakeholders. But yes, it's very translatable skills, but I worry about that. I have in the past. And I think some of those things just come back very easily. I hadn't drawn blood in about a year and went to see a patient and I picked it back up, no problem. But I can understand the fear of that for sure. I just think there's a lot more that we've learned as nurses in the hospital beyond just those clinical skills that you can pull forward with you.
So while you are speaking here, it came to my mind. If I want to give you two options for you, and you need to choose one, pick one option from that. Come back for leadership position in hospital under pressure and make the quality outstanding on all those stuff which the chief nursing officer and director they need to do, or doing like what you are doing right now in the commercial level, and with all those pressure plus make sure your corporate and your company they are hitting the number and achieve their target. What you will choose?
What I'm doing now, 100%.
It's hectic, but it's nice, right?
I love what I do. And you're right, it is very niche. Like when I was in nursing school, I never heard about clinical research, nursing like this. I had never heard anything about it. And I think one of the nice things about nursing is there are so many options for us, right? In our career. Like there are 1,000 different paths you can take once you're a nurse and you get some of that bedside experience. But I really love what I do. 100% take all of the competing priorities I have now.
And you fall in love from the first insight for this company. So tell me, you start your career as an AR nurse and
Yeah.
yeah.
So I actually started my career in the ICU, and I was really lucky because going through nursing school, I got into a really great hospital in the Los Angeles area for my first job. And they had this amazing new grad program. And I think I learned more in the year of my new grad program and my first job than I probably did in all of nursing school. It was just so awesome. And so I worked in an ICU, and we were a mixed ICU. It was medical and surgical. I had open heart and trauma. It was a little bit of everything. And I did that for about 5 years. But I realized about the 5-year mark, I started feeling like I don't think I can do acute care forever. And for me, it was because I started sort of seeing life in worst case scenarios. Like, because in the ICU, it's like the surgery, like the tonsillectomy gone wrong. And, there can be thousands of tonsillectomies that go perfectly fine, but you're seeing the one that went wrong, or the really bad motorcycle accident. And you start to kind of think in those worst case scenarios when that's all you're seeing. And I didn't want to do that forever. And so I went on this like mission to try to figure out what I wanted to do. And I tried home health nursing, and that's a lot of paperwork and documentation. And I did education for a pharmaceutical company for a while, but that didn't quite satisfy what I was looking for. And it was like I just went trying to find all these different jobs to see what I wanted to do. I did home hospice for a while. I really loved it. And then a recruiter had contacted me about this clinical research job. And I walked into the office. This was when my company was based out of Los Angeles. We're now based out of North Carolina. And I walked into the office, and it was like, it had this very Google-esque feel. It was like this big open office plan, and everyone had these standing desks, and there were like a refrigerator with 8 different flavors of sparkling water and like chocolate almonds on the wall. And it was like, it felt very kind of tech startup. And I was like, this is magical. What is this? And they had a week where they just taught us all of the skills that you have to have as a clinical research nurse that are very different than being like a nurse in a hospital, like using a centrifuge and spinning samples and aliquoting off the plasma, all that stuff that you wouldn't learn in a hospital. And it was just the energy. We had this slogan at the time. It was like, be kind, useful, and awesome. And it was like this like all of these people that were so collaborative and creative and innovative, and it was doing things that had never been done before. And it was just, I completely fell in love with clinical research and the company. Yeah. And I had never felt like that before with a job. It was like, it just was like this perfect match.
I feel all of those warm energy coming for me here to Canada.
Yeah.
So it's getting hot here. It's not cold right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very interesting. Tell me how your clinic nursing and clinical background shape you and equip you to be in the leadership position with the research company.
Yeah. I think, it's interesting because when I first started nursing, I had been a server for a really long time in a restaurant, like a waitress. And then I was a bartender as well. And I felt like those skills that I learned really helped make me a better nurse because you learn how to like cluster work or cluster care. So it's like if you're going into the med room, think about what you need for everything, not doing things one at a time, but like, okay, if I'm going to go into the supply room and get a pillow for this room, what do I need a bedpan for another room? Like, how can I cluster all of it all at once to minimize having to run back and forth? And working in the hospital, I think you learn, and it's like I said earlier, it's learning how to interface with different kind of stakeholders. Like you're going to be a little different with a patient than you're going to be with their family. And you have to be a little bit different with the doctor and with your coworkers and maybe like the medical assistants on the floor, the CNAs. You're kind of interfacing with all these different people. And it's learning to balance competing priorities. And especially in the ICU, it's such a stressful work environment. You really have to keep calm in the face of all of that. And I feel like all of these skills you learn as a nurse just lend themselves so well to being in a leadership position because you don't crack under pressure, right? You're able to kind of keep your calm and be really empathetic to the people that you're working with. I think that takes you a really long way.
Yeah, that's really lovely. So it came to my mind now about back for your business model. So for sure, this is an untraditional way to do research with your participant. So when this idea came to the market, what was the problem you tried to solve, or what is the business need to do that in participant home and not bring them to home? I know maybe it's a silly question, but for sure there is more than we thought about it.
Yeah, I think traditionally clinical studies have not had very much diversity. So they're like women are really underrepresented in clinical research studies. People of color are not well represented in research studies because it's very demanding schedule to be in a clinical trial. It depends on the clinical trial, but some of them you have to go into the site maybe once a month, or some of them you might have to go in 3 times a week. And who can take off work and be away and travel into a site? Maybe the site's an hour away from you or 2 hours away, and you're having to go in 2 times a week or 3 times a week or even once a month. It's a lot to ask. And so I think this was founded trying to make clinical research accessible for everyone because you're completely removing that burden from the participant. They're no longer having to travel into a research site. We work completely around their schedule, and the nurse takes all of that equipment and everything that's needed into their home. So it's relieving that burden, which allows us to capture a larger population of people and a more diverse population of people to participate in these clinical trials, right? They don't have to take the day off work or the day off of school. We can come early in the morning or later in the afternoon, whatever is needed. And so I think that's where it was founded. But actually, our company was founded by 2 dermatologists. So we started in the dermatology space, mainly doing dermatology studies, and then have expanded from there. And now we do a little bit of everything. But I think the original intention behind it was to make these research studies more accessible for anyone who wanted to participate.
And this is for sure your participant as a patient and family, they will like this because it's less effort and cost for them to travel. And even if this is the cost is covered by you, but still it is hectic and near wasting time and effort. Okay.
Yeah.
I can understand that. So you are now a hub between the participant and your client, the customer who you sell those data for them.
Yep.
Pharma companies, pharmaceutical, and also the medical equipment.
Yep.
How you convince them this is the right way to do it?
It's not easy. It's an uphill battle. And I think at this point, because we have been successful on so many studies, the data kind of speaks for itself, right? But I have been with this company now for 7 years, and it's not easy to convince these clients to use our services. And And the industry is very slow to change, right? Because the way that they've always done things is a brick and mortar site and the patient travels into the site. It's been done forever and ever this way. And there is a sense of a loss of control from the pharmaceutical company. You're now sending the nurse into the home. They feel like, and the nurse is the only person the patient is ever meeting. The participant is never meeting any of the other, they're interfacing with a lot of people in our company, with our doctors and the clinical coordinators and all of these people. But the nurse is the only person they're ever meeting face to face. But the client feels this kind of, they can feel a little bit of a loss of control, I think. And it just hasn't been done this way. So it's a lot of conversations, many conversations before these studies ever get contracted with us. Just convincing them that our nurses are really amazing. They're like top-notch, high-quality nurses that really know what they're doing. We have a really great team of investigators who oversee these visits. And I would say that the investigators probably spend more time with the patients in this kind of virtual setting than they would even in an office, because we have really long physical exams with the nurses over video with the doctor and the nurse. And so, but it is a lot to convince them to use our services sometimes.
But yeah, it seems you are now established this trust and repetition, and you expand your specialty. You started with dermatology. Now, how many specialties do you have right now?
Oh my gosh. I think we counted recently and we've done over 25 therapeutic areas. I mean, we started out in dermatology and then it was like slowly started doing the space where we're most successful, I would say, or where it really is showcases why our model works so well, is when you have really rare diseases. Because those patients are really far and few between, and they're usually having to travel really far into a clinical site to get care. And they, a lot of times with the really rare disease, these people are very much associate with their disease. So they're in advocacy groups. They have, a community of people who also have the same diagnosis, and they really want to progress medicine to help find a cure for others who may be diagnosed with this, to help find a medication that can help alleviate symptoms or whatever it is. And so they're very invested. And then being able to bring that to their home and alleviate that burden for them is really, really amazing. We have a study right now for a disease called Fragile X syndrome, which is a really rare syndrome. And we are doing a pediatric arm of it. So it's all kids. And for us to be able to come to the home and alleviate the parents having to, travel with the child into the site is just huge. It really showcases why our model works so well. Yeah, I think that answered your question.
Yeah, you did. And for sure, I'm assuming this is also cost effective for the companies also, right? Your no?
It is and it isn't.
It depends.
It depends. And I think, the busier we are and the bigger I'm able to grow out my nurse network, and we're always growing. And the more nurses I have, the higher probability that they're not having to travel very far to the patient. And then, yes, our services are less expensive. But, back in the day when I was first hired, there was a very, very small team of nurses, and we were flying all over the country to see these patients because we didn't have a lot of nurses. So then it was very expensive, right? Because every single visit was a flight and a hotel and a rental car and everything else. But now that our network has gotten so large of nurses, they're typically not having to travel very far. And so it makes us much more cost effective.
Yeah, which makes sense. Less allowance, less expensive, less travel cost. So what is preventing you from increasing your team? Is this something internally based on the budget, or this unique skill set is not available for all the nurses?
Yeah, I think what prevents me is it's finding a balance, right, of the number of visits that we have and how many per diem nurses we need to bring on. It's challenging because, we recruit in all 50 states. So I can get a patient in any city, in any state at any time, and I never know where they're going to come from. So I kind of have to look at trends. Where are the areas that I typically get the most visits, and really staff up my nurses in that area? But then you get the one-off, like Florida is really busy for us consistently. So I have a lot of per diem nurses in Florida. But up until a month ago, we had never done a visit in North Dakota. we just had our first patient enroll in North Dakota. And so I've been having to fly a nurse to North Dakota every other week to do this visit because we don't have a nurse there because we haven't done visits there in the past. So it's like trying to find this balance of how many visits we have, how many nurses I need, how many visits do I forecast are coming down the pipeline. And then it can be challenging to find nurses who get excited about clinical research because it isn't like sexy the way that like ICU nursing or ER nursing is, right? It's not this like adrenaline rush on the front lines. This is really helping to progress science and medicine on the front end. And it's like doing blood pressures and getting height and weight. And it can be kind of tedious, right? Because every single number matters in research. So the blood pressure has to be very exact. What was the exact blood pressure? What time did you take the blood pressure? Everything has to be documented very exactly. And so it can be a little bit tedious. So it's finding nurses who are interested in clinical research and think it's exciting as we think it is, but also want to travel to participants' homes. Some people don't want to go into somebody else's house. I personally love seeing patients in their homes, seeing participants in their homes. I just think it's so special. And the relationship that my nurses are able to form with these participants, some of them may be in the study for a year or 2 years, or maybe even longer than that. And my nurses get a really, really close relationship with them and get to see them in their homes. So it's very personal. Like in the hospital, if a patient comes into the hospital, you're never going to develop as personal, I don't think, of a relationship as if you're coming into their home every week or every other week or every month and you're breaking bread with them. They're making you a cup of coffee and you're just kind of making small talk in their house and you're really seeing them and meeting them where they are. And so I think it's such a special relationship, but not all nurses want to do visits in the home. So I think my role is really challenging and my team's role because it's finding the perfect balance of like having enough nurses to do the visits, but not having too many nurses because we don't want to bring on nurses and then we don't have work for them. And then finding the right nurses who really enjoy this kind of work. And we have some really amazing nurses on our team, but it's just finding the right people.
Yeah, I agree with you, and this is the challenging for someone working onto the business where you need to make sure taking care from profit and loss formula
Yes.
to make sure where is the supply and demand and variety. Assuming now you have a new trial or new study and you want to work it and you have the budget to hire, are you affected by the shortage in the nursing, or this is all? This doesn't matter for you. Only the what you have just mentioned right now, the skill set and the passion and the interest from the nurses.
Yes, I'm sure that the nursing shortage impacts us. And we do a lot of our recruitment passively. So it's just nurses who find our postings on LinkedIn. We don't like really go out and headhunt people. And I'm sure that I am impacted by the nursing shortage. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, then it's finding nurses whose schedule fits right for us because a lot of nurses, like they'll apply for a job, they'll interview and they work Monday through Friday in like an OR, or whatever it is. The nurses who work best for us either have multiple per diem jobs or work in the hospital 3 days a week and can do visits for us 2 days a week. But I'm absolutely sure that the nursing shortage is impacting us. Absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine that it isn't impacting every
Right.
area.
So yeah, sorry for that, but I'm laughing because I told you before we get started, I try as much as I can to have an outline, a structure to follow, but it's very hard.
No, not at all. I'm happy to have like organic.
So here I have a question. So maybe it's ironic question. So do you have in your mind in the future, based on your strategy to expand, to have a drive-through for your services?
Drive-through. So no drive-through, but my dream, and I've been trying to convince my company forever, is to let me get like a van or an RV where we can do these visits like in a van or an RV. And some of
like road trip.
Yeah. And some of our competitors do have, they call them mobile research units, MRUs. So I don't think having a drive-through, but my dream personally is to have one of these mobile research units where we can drive and park at a location and have a few patients come in and see us in like this mobile research unit.
Lovely, interesting. So you mentioned one of those requirement or problem you try to solve to have more diverse background for your sample and participant. And we know there is some of diseases and syndrome, it's affecting some races, not affecting the other races, and sometimes gender, not the other gender.
Yeah.
So based on what I understand from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, all your business US based, but the diseases is not all in the US. So some diseases came from black or African or Indian races, which need a lot of study and researches, especially you sell those trial for your customer to innovate a new solution through the pharmaceutical or medical equipment. Why you are stuck in the US?
Well, actually, we are in Canada as well.
Really?
Do have nurses in Canada, yes. And we at one time were doing a lot of work globally. It's just a little bit more complicated because research gets it's just very different in like the EU and other parts of the world. And it's a little bit more complicated as far as like here, I can have a team of nurses that are my employees all across the US. It's a little bit different when you're looking at overseas. It's not quite so easy to hire like direct employees where we have the control. So we're usually having to use like third-party agencies to have those nurses, and it's just a little bit different. But we have done it, our primary focus, and we would do it again for the right opportunity, but really our primary focus is US and Canada.
Yeah, you will come for us through the van in the future with your van.
Exactly. Yes.
You will be.
I'll
You
be
will take the
calling you.
driving seat, right?
Yes. I'll be calling you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I am here across the border. I am in Niagara Falls, so very close from Buffalo. So
Very close.
yeah,
Yes.
very
Yeah.
close from Buffalo. So very interesting talking about the research. And also here, I'm looking for more about it. Is to be honest, I am blank. I am very green in this area. I don't know anything about research, but I want to go for more into technology and innovation, the tools and software and technique you are using for your team, not for the research whole team. So is there is any solution you are working or you are aiming in the future, not for your company, I'm asking about this industry, is this is a lack of resource and technology to facilitate your work, or this is no, it's fully equipped with the all resource which you want?
So that's interesting about technology. And I think one thing I've noticed is sometimes nurses struggle a little bit interfacing with technology. So it's interesting that you're in technology because sometimes it can be a little bit hard to get our nurses up to speed with technology. Given that we are doing everything remotely that would typically be done at like a clinic or brick and mortar site, we interface with a lot of technology. So all of my nurses have either a MacBook or an iPhone, and there are a lot of different platforms that we're interfacing with all the time because they're having to do real-time documentation electronically while they're in their home. They're doing physical assessments with a doctor on video. So there's a doctor on a video call. My nurse is in the home doing an assessment on a patient, and the doctor is going to say, "Can you listen to the heart sounds for me?" And the nurse listens to the heart sounds and calls out what they're hear. They're like, "I hear S1, S2, no rubs, no murmurs." And the doctor is actually documenting that as their own findings. But there's always new technology and things that I'm trying to integrate into my nursing to make it easier or to make it a better experience for the patient. So for example, I was just at a conference and there's this really cool company that developed an app, and there's a teddy bear. I can actually show it to you. And the kids can scan the teddy bear with the app, and they're able to follow along with what the nurse is doing to them on the app. So for example, if the nurse is going to listen to their heart sounds, the child can scan the bear and then go into the app, pick a stethoscope, put the stethoscope on the teddy bear's chest in the app, and hear the heart sounds. Or they can do like an injection with a needle. So they can like, it's like in the app, and they can like take the needle and stick the needle in the bear's arm to like simulate it. So if my nurse needs to do an injection on the child, they can kind of follow along in the app, and it makes it more interactive for them. So I'm always looking for new technology and cool
It
things
is
like
interesting. If you can share a video for this, I can put it on this episode with you. So it's like something, it's like magic to do with especially with the kids. So we have a high quality and also more empathy for the kids, which is something
Exactly.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm asking you this question because most probably I'm facing my customer who are in the hospital. So I working with them. So typically more or less I can expect what they need, how we can do it, and we have a clear understanding for the roadmap, how to build the solution for them. But I feel very hard to think about your solution, how we can facilitate it for your team and also for the client. And you bring very interesting idea, and also happy to connect with you offline to see how we can work together and collaborate between the tech experience I have and your unique research study. But please, if you have that teddy bear, let's put it.
I will show it to you. It made me so excited, but this is
Awesome.
And so the kid would have the teddy bear and they scan it and you see there's like these little patches.
Yeah.
And the app recognizes these patches. So if the kid wants to listen to the heart sounds, they can scan the heart and then pull up a little stethoscope on the app, and the app will they can hear the heart sounds. So they can kind of play along with the care that they're receiving from the nurse in the home, and it just sort of puts them at ease, right? I just think it's a nice touch. So I'm always looking for little things like that to make either the patient's experience better, participant, or to make my nurse's experience easier. Because doing these things in the home is not easy. And I think a thing to remember when the nurses are in the home environment, when you're in a hospital, you're supported by a whole team, right? If you can't get the IV or you can't get the blood draw, you can just say, hey, I need somebody to come in here and help me. You can't do that in the home. Like if you can't do it, then the visit is done. We have to travel in another nurse to do it and start all over again. It's very expensive for us. It's frustrating for the nurse. It's frustrating for the patient, participant. And so there's a lot of pressure on them to get it exactly right. And you have to have really strong clinical skills to be able to do that in the home completely independently and not have to need any help from anybody.
Now, with your example, now it's came to my mind. I am in the home with the participant, and I try to draw a blood from a difficult vein, and it's ruptured there, and I don't want to hurt them more, but at the same time, I need to take the blood sample, but no one else there except me. And I don't want to call anyone. So I imagine the pressure for the nurse on the spot in the short time. They need to make everything on the spot. It's hard. It's not an easy.
It is not easy. And, you learn a lot of tricks when you've been doing it for a while. I've had patients in the home doing jumping jacks. I'm like trying to get the blood flow, so I'm like having them doing jumping jacks in their living room, running their hands under hot water. All of our nurses have hot packs. We have vein finders. If we know that the patient's going to be a really hard stick ahead of time, we'll send our nurses a vein finder so they can use that. So, but it's a lot of pressure on these nurses. You're in the home.
Still.
And
so
you want to get it great.
Why I came with this, because you mentioned here user experience and customer satisfaction or participant satisfaction. So do you send a survey or some sort of that from that fashion to see if they are satisfied with your service or not, and take those data? Because you mentioned all research is about the data. So take those data to enhance and bring a new solution and services for your participant. Is this part from your business?
Yeah. So I recently, funny you ask, I just developed recently, I worked with our marketing team to develop. I really wanted the patients. I noticed that when the nurses were getting to the home, the participants weren't totally prepared for how much equipment my nurses were going to have. I mean, they have an entire suitcase and another bag with the centrifuge, and sometimes another bag as well. They're come in and they're like, some of these patients, those participants who've never done this before, feel a little bit, I think, intimidated when a nurse is showing up to their house with all of this gear. It just looks kind of intimidating. And so, yes. So I noticed that my nurses were going to the home, and especially if it was like a first visit, and the participants really had no idea what they'd gotten themselves into. And they were like really surprised. The nurses were showing up with all this equipment, and they didn't really understand that they needed like a space for my nurses to work and to be able to plug in their centrifuge and kind of work in private, right? And so we started sending them a pamphlet before their first visit, sort of preparing them. But additionally, I included a QR code on it so that we can get their feedback. So they receive like a pamphlet kind of walking them through everything to expect before their first home visit, but also encouraging them to give us their feedback via QR code. And we also send it to them via email, and it has a link, just so that I want to make sure that we're getting any feedback we need to make it a better experience for the participants.
So I was wondering, when you measure all those participant satisfaction. Do you share this with your partner into pharmaceutical and medical equipment, or you keep those for your internal use for future development and enhancement?
Yes, we share it. We also share it publicly, especially if it's good feedback. But I think the important thing for us is when we're accumulating this feedback, it's just that we're continually improving our process to make it a better experience, right? And clients are also doing surveys of participants after studies, asking them about their experience in this kind of model, having a nurse come into their home. And most of the time, it's really great feedback. So they're doing their own feedback. We're doing feedback. But I also see my clients as my nurses, right? Like I want to make sure that they're having a really good user experience and how can we make it better for them. So I see my client not just as the participant in the home, but also the nurse and our sponsors. And so it's kind of taking all of that feedback and making sure that we're making it the best experience for everybody.
And I'm sure right now all of our audience can count how many hats you are wearing working in this position right now.
Yes, it's a lot of hats, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It keeps it exciting and interesting. I get to learn a lot all of the time, and it's fun. And it's funny because prior to being a nurse, I was actually a meteorologist in the Air Force. So I did weather forecasting for pilots, and I worked behind a desk, sitting at a computer for 10 hours a day. And I wanted to become a nurse because I was like, I think the science is really exciting, but I want to combine that with my love of humanities. And I became a nurse, and now I'm here sitting behind a computer.
And I'm happy having you today because this is a lot of info and also excitement for the new generation to see how they are lucky to be in nursing and the opportunity they can have right now and in the future. So now we are 2025. We don't know we will contribute in the future. Right now, I realize still I thought I am with the health tech industry, but we never have any project work with the research from the technology point of view. So still there's a lot of business and area is untapped, and they can play a huge role there. So speaking on the future, how you see the future of research from your perspective and point of view along the side with your van?
Yes. How do I see technology being integrated with the van?
How you see it?
I see everything being built into the van, so the nurses have to travel with very little, and it being a much more seamless experience. Because right now, while we're taking the burden off of the participants, our nurses are traveling with a lot of stuff. So all of the burden is on my nurses. I have amazing nurses. They do a great job. But if we had these mobile research units and vans that could take some of that off of them, that would be amazing.
Thank you for your insight. And being a nurse, I'm happy to find a nurse like you. And I see myself by you. And there's a lot of opportunity to work and has in the future. And I will share your details here onto the podcast. So anyone want to connect with you, they can connect with you. And also I'm excited to bring you back again with your idea.
You will share my details, so anyone who wants to connect with me, that's
So anyone want to connect with you, I will put your contact information here in the screen, and they can connect with you and see you. I'm happy of having you, and also I see myself by you. I'm proud to have nurses in the industry like you, and looking forward to bring you again next time to tell us about more success and more story, and to see us how you driving your van.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me on this. It was so nice talking with you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
If this episode sparked something in you, here's how you can keep our mission alive. Subscribe to Uncharted Narratives S03E03-The. Leave us a 5-star review. It helps more amazing people discover our stories. Share an episode that moved you with a colleague or friend. Connect with me on LinkedIn and join our healthcare innovation community. Together, we're not just telling stories. Until next time, stay curious, stay passionate, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in healthcare. See you in the next episode of Uncharted Narratives S03E03-The.